Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the return of the Saturday morning D&D show. My name is Jordan with the silent PH in the middle, and I am joined always by my wonderful co-host, Sir Lucian, over at Sir Lucian Gaming. Say hello, sir.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another show. We missed you. We're glad we're here.
Very glad to be
miss
back.
You again. I'm not sure.
Thank you for understanding. You'll notice that my background is very bare. My bookshelves are empty because it is moving week, and so everything is in boxes. And hopefully next week I'll be in the new house and I'll have a new backdrop and it'll be awesome. And we can have another show. But there potentially might not be a show. Or Lucian, if you want, you can find a special guest host. I hear LB Hackemup is a popular choice.
I don't know.
Because everyone really seems to want to replace me or you with her. So, happy 4th of July.
They just want to give the show to her. Like, they want us to, it's just going to be
LB
it's just
LB. Happy 4th of July, America's birthday. Very exciting. Be safe out there. If you are in a COVID virusy area,
hey, be careful.
Consider staying home or wearing a mask. That is my personal recommendation to you, just so you are safe, because that's spooky. I'm excited for all the fireworks to keep my baby up and dog all night.
Because it happened last night already, and it wasn't yeah.
It's so it's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be crazy. We are Dungeons and Dragons. Go ahead.
Fireworks are dangerous. They're cool. I love
fun.
them. I've loved them all the time. But be careful. Don't be one of those stories where something bad happens and you have to go to the hospital. Just safely use them if you can.
Yes. Be safe. Have fun. Be happy, etc. Yes, we are a Dungeons and Dragons D&D talk show where we just kind of talk about the news of D&D and the games that we're playing. We also talk about inspiration that we have for running our games or running new games, as well as anything else that kind of pops into our mind. And today is America's birthday. I'm moving, so I actually haven't played games at all in a while, because it's been, do you want to go play games or do you want to pack
some boxes?
And I want to go play games, but my wife says that I want to pack. So I've been packing. No, it's good though. We're going to get the whole house up and running. I think we're mostly there. And it's gonna work out, and the new house is gonna be great. So everything's gonna be just awesome.
Yep. And I'm all for the saying, a happy wife is a happy life. So you might as well just listen to her. She's right.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, hey, can I, you got these boxes and this baby, right? I'm just going to go roll some dice for 3 hours. Like, that's just, no, we are the mirror universe of the Saturday morning D&D show, just so you know. Maybe we should have put, like, Tuesday morning D&D show, since we have evil bearded Lucian and evil bearded Jordan. For those of you
enjoying the week.
Yes, for those of you listening on the podcast, we have grown some facial hair because of the quarantine. So, and I'm actually really enjoying this beard. And normally I grow a beard and then I try to cut it really fast because I'm like, it's kind of dumb. But like, I'm digging this. I think I might,
especially in the summertime, is making it hot.
It's too hot. Well, we're gonna see. There is some news, some stuff going on in the world of D&D. Something that slipped past me that I thought was really cool is a Shovel Knight D&D tie-in. Now, Lucian, have you played the game Shovel Knight?
I did a while back, and it was kind of fun. And I did like it. I'm trying to remember what I played it on, though. I don't remember what kind of
It's on, like,
device.
every system. Like,
so I was trying to remember what I bought it on, because I was thinking, could I go find it again now that you mentioned this in our news? I'm like, I should go find it again and get it. But yeah, I played a tiny bit of it when it first came out.
It's a 8-bit or 16-bit, maybe, something like. It's an older looking game, even though it's new. And they've made a lot of like sequels with this, but I think the sequels are wrapped up in what you originally buy. So that's kind of the cool thing. Like Yacht Club Games, I believe, made this, and they've been very proactive of like, if you bought the game, you get the extra stuff we're working on. And so they're like, we just want to sell more copies of the game rather than nickel and dime our fans. And I really like that. So
nice.
It's fun. I like this. I have not finished playing Shovel Knight, but I really enjoy it. But friend of the show and friend of mine, Ted from Nerd Immersion, did a video, and I was like talking to him about it. And I think this came out at the beginning of the year, but they made a Shovel Knight class for Dungeons & Dragons 5e. And
Nice.
I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can search this and you'll find it as well. And it's called like Shovels and Shields. And it's really cool. Like they got fun artwork because they're a game company. They got all this other stuff, but they've got like the Knight class. And then there is various subclasses for that class, including the shovel. And so you attack with a shovel and you get extra things. You can dig in the ground and flip enemies over and things like that. There's a shield class, because I guess there's a character in the game that has dual shields. So that's kind of cool. Like we haven't seen that before, where you have double shields. And anyway, it's fun. I think it's very clever. It's really well thought out. The more I was reading it, the more I'm like, I kind of want to play this. And was thinking back to the early days of my D&D career, where everything was pen and paper, and I actually encouraged a lot of homebrew. Now that I'm using D&D Beyond so much, I kind of been shunning away from homebrew because, well, it doesn't synergize with D&D Beyond, and I get frustrated that it doesn't auto-calculate for me, and it's nigh impossible to do a custom class in D&D Beyond. So I don't know, like. But did you read it? Did you look at this at all? Did you like it?
Yeah, I mean, I like the and Danimal just said Shovel Knight makes me think of the 1999 movie Mystery Men, which is exactly what makes me think of it, because as that year on Halloween, I went as the shoveler and had a shovel on my back for Halloween, which was awesome, and I love that costume. And so yeah, I thought this was a cool tie-in. I wouldn't mind playing something. When you said tie-in, though, I was thinking like they had maybe put D&D stuff into their game. I wasn't thinking that they were bringing stuff from their game into D&D. So
that's what they were like, I guess. And I guess thinking about it, the League of Legends Runeterra did the same thing, where they're taking stuff from their game and it's weird because you would think that you would want to, I don't know. I guess here's the thing. Like if I'm thinking of Stranger Things. If I put D&D in my Stranger Things TV show, you're taking fans of the show and making them curious about D&D. And this other flip must be, well, there's a big D&D fan base. I'll put my Shovel Knight stuff there, hoping that they like it enough that they'll buy the game. I guess that's the mentality, right?
Be.
So
I
don't know.
I like it. And I like all these 8-bit games that have been coming out. There's been a couple that really caught my eye. Children of Morta on Steam has looked really good. 8-bit Undungeon. You guys see me tweeting about that all the time because I love that artwork that they're doing. And there's all these great kind of old school games, but have newer technology driving them and newer developers with new ideas driving what can be done with these old school graphics that are still cool. I mean, I play Minecraft for, so I like blocks. So I love it. I love that there's still some really cool stuff there, but they've made it look good too. It's not just 8-bit, it's good looking 8-bit stuff, or it's 8-bit-esque, even though they're probably using a lot more than 8 bits to build their models and stuff. So I think it's cool. There's a lot of cool stuff out there. I love the idea that Shovel Knight was a fun game as I remember it, because it was very kind of reminded me of my Nintendo days. It's very Nintendo like. Super Nintendo is what it kind of reminded me of. Is the type of games I would buy on Super Nintendo was very Shovel Knight like. It was almost Joust like and side scroller like, and those kind of cool games that are fun to dive into for 10, 15, 20 minutes, maybe an hour. Then you go off and do some other stuff, and it's just fun and cool, and you get to play with it. So I think it's cool that they got something. I'll have to look it up. I'd love to play a knight who runs around with a shovel smashing people in the face with a silvered shovel. That would be super cool.
A character concept that I haven't quite been able to make it work is I want a chef barbarian who attacks people with a frying pan.
Okay.
So
my interest.
Very angry, turns into a rage, has his frying pan, does bludgeoning damage.
And his name is Gordon Ramsay.
Something. Yeah. I thought it would be so funny. But I haven't quite made it work yet. Another fun 8-bit game, now we're the 8-bit game show, is I just had it up. Hyper Light Drifter.
Oh god.
And that was one that I really loved. And then they made an RPG for that. Yeah. If I remember correctly, they tried to do a Kickstarter to finish it, and I think the Kickstarter didn't fund, which is sad. Right. Because it was really cool. But then I think about it and I'm like, well, I didn't back it. I should have if I really wanted it, I didn't think about it, but But I really love that game. It's a really cool world, and I think the RPG aspect would have expanded on that really cool world that they created. So, but anyway,
Very cool.
Critical Role is back. This was a big deal. Since the virus hit, they have not been playing. But they made an announcement video that they're like, hey, we're going to start playing. Here's all the precautions we're taking. Everybody's going to be 6 feet apart at the table, blah, blah, blah. They're also testing weekly for the virus before they all come in. And they have a production crew and stuff like that. So this is a big deal, but they want to keep their people safe. But there was a big hubbub on Twitter and stuff about it of like, why not just use Zoom? Like, why do they have to be in the same room? And a lot of people were defending them, saying that the chemistry and the synergy between their friendship and things like that, like they wouldn't get the same kind of feel. But I don't know. Personally, I don't buy that, because a lot of people, I guess I know a lot of people that stream on the internet, and it's like, oh, okay. But thoughts, like why was this a thing?
Let me sorry and dash the that theory you just brought up, because nearly 85% of the show has somebody virtual on a laptop screen because they couldn't make it to the show, but yet played an important character who stayed friends with everybody the entire time through most of it. And she was busy. She had a fantastic career going on. The only way she could make it was to be on the laptop. So they've already kind of been doing that. So I don't buy that so much as a,
and that wasn't them saying, wasn't them being like, them. We can't do Zoom. So I'm not faulting Matt Mercer, Critical Role, and all those. But like the fans were trying to make excuses for it. And I don't know, they haven't said why they do that. Maybe their production level quality is just like, we want to bring our A game, and we don't bring our A game if we're doing this. But
I think the difference is they are actors. They have careers as actors, and all of those careers came to a stop when COVID happened, right? So all the studio stuff they were doing, all that stuff kind of stopped because California said, stop production. We're not having these things going on. So they are real actors. And so I think they took that and applied it to their whole life. So they said, okay, we need to quarantine where everybody needs to be on break. We're not going places. So I think they did that across all of their stuff they are, which is different, because if we're running a show, we're streamers online, or we're amateur YouTubers, or we're people that just like to play games and post them so people can watch them. They're actors putting on a production, which I think is kind of, we sometimes forget is different than what we do, even though they're in the same space as me and you have run shows that look just like the show they run, except, not sitting around a table. So I think that's the mentality that they had. And maybe they weren't even thinking, oh, wait, we could still just do this and keep going. It was more like, hey, my whole career is on hold. All the studios are shut down. So until we know what's going on, we'll just take a couple months off, and then, we'll all be back to working it. Because remember, in the beginning too, nobody knew it was going to be 2 or 3 months. It started out like in the very beginning, it was only going to be a week or two, or people weren't sure. Yeah, but as the weeks started drawing on, then it was like, no, maybe it's going to need to be a month. Oh, no, now it needs to be more of a month. So I think it was a weird thing. So I don't fault them for taking a break. I don't fault them for saying, hey, let's kick back. And if they don't want to do Zoom or Skype or whatever company, because any company would have sponsored them if they wanted to use their video. Black Magic Cameras probably would have sponsored them to do some really cool stuff from home, but they just want to take a break. I don't know. No big deal to me.
And yeah, maybe they did need to take a break. My theory was that there was actually some actor union stuff that was like, no, we're not allowing you to do, like, you can't do this without the production crew that you've already hired because of like unions and things like that. For them to bypass those crew members that are under contract and do it online, they might not have been able to do that.
Because they may be a real production company. They may not just be a Twitch channel.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, and you get into that scenario where there's a lot of people behind the scenes that are like, you can't just stop our jobs, and there's a lot of unions that stop or are preventing that from happening. With
actors,
because if those weren't in place, and so and so was sick, and they're like, well, we'll just do this, and this guy in the background will hold the boom mic for this scene that we're trying to record. Well, all of a sudden that tacky guy is getting replaced by somebody who is getting paid minimum wage to, water dogs or something. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a big union guild thing going on.
So I wonder if that was it, but it just was really weird. And a lot of people felt like, hey, why don't you're kind of forgetting where you came from, where you guys were literally playing in an apartment, filming on Twitch, and now that's cool that you have this big thing, but like, I don't know. I think a lot of people. Yeah. I'm not a big Critical Role fan. I like the people a lot, but I just don't follow their story. But they, it feels like that would have been a cool way to tell the story again, and especially to promote online gaming, because they're just like, oh, you guys you like Critical Role. We're sorry you can't play with your friends right now, but like, we're playing online. Guess what? You can too, And if I was Roll20, if I was Fantasy Grounds, I would have been on the phone immediately saying, will you use my online tabletop for like the 3 weeks of quarantine? And we'll pay you to use it or something. So, but I'm sure there's more to the story. It was just weird. I didn't catch their latest episode. I'm not sure how it went, but they came back this Thursday. A lot of people are happy. My friends included. My D&D table are big Critical Role fans, and
big fan base.
They're excited that Critical Role is back. So, overall, I guess that's the takeaway: is we should just be excited that Critical Role is back. So, yeah,
and the story continues. I think they made. Well, I think I saw a tweet about, or they were doing a video on, they just made level 12 or something maybe. And
they made a whole video of them like, let's roll our hit dice. And I was like, honestly, I understand that that's content. And if I was in a position to do that, I'd be like, you know what, this is silly, but people want to see me roll dice for a permanent number of this character that they're interested in.
Not just interested, they are fanatics for it.
So I would do the same thing at the same time. Felt very silly to be like, you're gonna just watch me roll a d10. Cool. Like, I don't know.
Here we go.
It's interesting. Side note, I'm actually getting more and more interested in, I think we've talked about this before, but like, I like point buy because it's very standard. And the game is balanced around point buy or standard array for D&D. But lately, I've becoming increasingly interested in rolling for stats and rolling hit points, because it makes your character that much more different. And I like that idea. Where you could have a level 3 of like, oh my gosh, I got 12 hit points this level. That's so cool. And then you have a level 7 where you're like, I literally got 2 hit points this level. That sucks. But there's a part of that, like, there's just a fun aspect of that in both swings, I think, So, but usually I'm always like, no, we won't roll dice. We'll just take the standard, because it feels the better option, to take the standard.
In all of our games, me and Danimo, who's our dungeon master for basically the circle of people I'm playing with at the moment, we're all big on getting some randomness in there somewhere. So we're always doing, 46 drop 1.
Yeah.
Danimal goes a little easier on us to make sure you have at least overall you have like a +2 bonus, or you can re-roll. But I was more mean than that. I was just like drop 46 drop 1. But we also were doing some random class, random race table stuff to really mix it up with people, to give them a chance to stretch their imagination or play something that they might not have picked or might not even thought could make fun, until they started playing it and realized, wait a minute, I just created a gift druid that I never would have created, but now this personality is coming out. Now these skills are coming out. What is this person about? And it's a way to really explore something that you might not have off the top of your head say, hey, I can't wait to make this next character. So, and hit points. We're all big on making sure you roll your hit points, not take the average, and just let the gods of the dice, decide in this campaign, do I have this fighter who keeps rolling low HP on his rolls and I just have to deal with that? Do I have this wizard who's been rolling really good? He's like a powerhouse, or does a stereotype come out and the wizard has super low hit points, so low that, in fact, that he's the glassiest cannon of all glass cannons, or she, or whatever type of character you're making.
Yeah.
So I'm embracing some of the randomnicity to things.
Yeah. And I was talking about it with some friends that, you might have an idea where you're like, I really want to play a dwarf druid, but after you roll the stats, you're like, oh, now that I roll the stats, I kind of still want to play a druid, but like maybe a Gith druid. Like I never thought about that, but that just kind of synergizes better with what I rolled. And that's kind of fun because you might play a class that you're not as interested in, and then realize that you're having a lot of fun. Secondly, what you were saying about hit points, like what if you are the wizard that's rolling ridiculously high hit points every turn?
Yeah.
By the time you're level 5, you're like, you know what? I'm going to take more melee touch spells.
I'm going to get closer.
Because I can get close. Like I was going to be a ranged wizard, but now that we're actually playing, I'm like, it would be kind of fun to do this. And so it's cool. Like, I don't know. That's my side note. The next big thing in the news.
It actually
go
happened
ahead.
just to do that. My war wizard was doing pretty good, rolling average, you know, a high roll here, a low roll there, but then it would average out over like 7 or 8 levels. And like at level 7 or 8, I picked up an ability or a magic item that raised my constitution to 20.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And retroactively, it all of a sudden made my wizard have something like 50 or 60 hit points. And immediately my play style changed because I was like, I'm getting right in there.
Yeah.
And I'm hitting stuff with, you know, shocking grasps and doing all kinds of crazy and not worried about taking a hit anymore because I've got some hit point buffer there. And so the joke was then he was stronger and more healthy than our paladin. So I kept always describing him as having big muscles and walking around and flexing and stuff on our paladin. And our paladin would always give him the side eye, which I thought was super funny. It was the Amulet of Health made the con to 19. And I think that's so damn. So it just made it really cool to have this wizard that could take a hit and not just be a glass cannon. Made the whole play style super different. So it was very cool. It's cool to switch that up, to switch those stereotypes around.
Yeah. I've also been, it's funny because with Rod of Seven Parts, the cast members were saying like, you're giving us some like kind of kooky magic items, but also they're really powerful, but like we don't exactly know how to use them sometimes. Because I've been emphasizing not just like here's a +1 longsword, but like I wanted to give them weird things, and that has been a fun mechanic too. Where I'm like players like having powerful magic items, and usually I've been because I overdid it in one campaign. Later campaigns I've been kind of stingy with them. But I'm realizing now that is the wrong mentality for Jordan. If you want to play a game like that, that is a way to do it. But I think players like getting magic items, and I've been having fun giving them. So it's been kind of cool.
Very cool.
This something we'll touch on kind of briefly, but diversity in D&D. Wizards of the Coast published a blog post basically that said that they're going to try and remove some culturally insensitive text from released adventures, which is kind of awesome. And specifically Tomb of Annihilation, which has some references to stuff that they're like, we don't need to reference people in this way, and Curse of Strahd, the Vistani, who are a Romanian type of, historically, they were based on Romanian people. So they're like, maybe we shouldn't play up these stereotypes with the Vistani, and maybe the Vistani can be something else, or be a reflection of them in a positive light as opposed to a negative. It's really up to Wizards of the Coast. They aren't specific about the changes that they want to make. They're not saying like, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But it is kind of interesting. They're going to change that. Also, they want to kind of abandon the word race in describing what type of creature you're playing. Pathfinder's already done this. I think your D&D race is a Pathfinder ancestry, which is kind of cool. So they're changing.
That's a good word.
Yeah. They're just kind of making it more, I don't know, better, like more modern, I guess. Like this is kind of how the world thinks. We want to change it up. We want to make sure that our game fits with the modern world. And the thing that I thought was interesting though, is that there's been a lot of talk of alignment. So they're going to change, not necessarily the alignment system where we have good, neutral, evil, lawful, chaotic, but what does that mean for your character? And if you are a drow, do you have to be inherently chaotic evil? And it's like, well, no, you don't. You could be a lawful good drow, or you could be this drow, or anything like that. So they want to get away from the humanoid races having like a set evil or chaotic alignment, which got me thinking about alignment in general and the history of Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm like, why do we have alignment in D&D? So go ahead. you need a bad guy. That's
because if you're adventurers who are going to take a sword and chop somebody's head off, you can't go chop the head off of somebody that's lawful good,
right?
And call your game something that people will want to play. So the thing you are chopping the head off has to be evil.
Yeah.
For it to make sense and for it not to go crazy back in the 70s or even nowadays, or even having teenage kids, 8th graders and stuff playing. The way to get around the violence is okay is because it's against violence against really bad people.
Yeah. And so you can have bad wizards, and you can have bad, like the Fey wizards are evil and things like that.
Yeah.
But it really comes down to mythology. Like in mythology, we have good versus evil. You have the good gods and the bad gods, and you're doing X and Y. And then I was researching some more, and I didn't realize this, but law versus chaos was a reflection of good versus evil in the sense of law was humanity and civilization, and chaos was what non-humans thrived on. So evil monsters and things like that, they were the embodiment of chaos. And that came from a book that inspired D&D. It's on the appendix and reading list, called 3 Hearts and 3 Lions by Paul Anderson. It's on my next book to read because I'm really curious about the fiction that inspired original D&D, and I've been going through a lot of those books. So I don't know where this will go. I'm not sure. There's a lot of, if you're active on Twitter, there's a lot of stuff happening on Twitter right now that we really won't get into. But you should go read up on it and don't yell at people, but joining the discussion is good. So
yeah, I like the idea that I've always thought the race was weird just because the way we use it is we use it as a description of people that are Homo sapiens, and then there's a division of different types of Homo sapiens, right? But then if you put that in a fantasy context and you said, well, elves is a race or dwarves are, they're not really Homo sapiens and they're a different type. They're a completely different species. They're not Homo sapiens. They're something else. So it always seemed weird to me that we would use a term that like that. Whereas I like the idea of a culture. Or like then you said ancestry was one way, but that's still kind of a, does that fit with, I don't know, is ancestry still a human
I think it does, because you could say, I have a dwarvish
be,
ancestry, or I have this. Even though I have a dwarvish ancestry, I was raised in Baldur's Gate around humans, and so I I don't know, but you I was
like in the culture, because you can have a bad culture. You could have a culture in some evil land, fictionally, that the culture has created evilness the way the culture is, so that way it's okay to go and battle that culture, right? But then there's good cultures and there's neutral cultures and there's all this stuff. It's not necessarily based on who the people are. It's the culture is the grouping of laws and the agreements that they all have come up with that have created whatever they're doing. So if their culture is oppress everybody around us, take everything we can take from everybody else because the stronger is the best and the weakest is the worst. That's a cultural decision. That group's made that decision. It's okay for my culture to go over and mess with that culture in a D&D setting. I think I like that idea of that. So, or like you said, the ancestry is your ancestors did this. So I don't know. I like I think it's great that they're changing that. I don't think there's any. And I also seem like the other big thing they were doing is getting rid of the abilities, mechanical differences was one of the things they were talking about too. So it wasn't just a grammatical change. Correct. It wasn't just an alignment change to say these people, because we've kind of had that. I mean, we have Drizzt, right? He's not. Is he lawful evil in the books?
No. Well, I don't think.
He's
he's
elf,
good,
right?
as far as I know.
Yeah,
I don't know if he has.
I
don't think they don't. I don't think he has an alignment, because Bob Salvatore is kind of like, because
it's a real.
Why
give
him
an
alignment? But but it's a character, so it's not like a D&D thing where I'm going to play to him, I think. And alignment has changed a lot with 3rd, 4th, and 5th edition, because back in the day it was like, I can't use this lawful sword because I'm chaotic. Like it was very much a definition of that. So. And there are still items like that in the game that can switch your alignment and do things, but how you interpret that is kind of up to the player and the DM nowadays.
Yeah.
So.
But going back to the point of, if they get rid of the mechanical, and I think I'm okay with this. I think I like the idea of get rid of the mechanical parts of being a race. That way anybody can look and be part of anything they want to be. And it's not part of you trying to decide, does it make me a better thief, or does it make me a better fighter, or does it make me a better wizard to be this thing? Because I get a +2 here, I get a plus something here, I get an ability at 3rd level for this. I kind of like the idea that what you look like and how you present yourself is just totally creative, and anybody can do whatever they want. The mechanical pieces are coming from your training. Your mechanical pieces are coming from your experience. Your mechanical pieces are coming from the equipment that you use. I kind of like that. So if they move in that direction, I think I like that. I don't know.
No, I do. I think, like I said, it's just bringing it up to modern times and modern way of thinking.
Yeah.
And that is going to create mechanically a lot of different interesting things. Because if I have a dwarf who wants to be a wizard and studied at Candlekeep his whole life, I could give him +2 intelligence rather than +2 con. And that's more options is more interesting to me. And
based on how you were raised, your bonus comes in. I love
things like that. I'm getting a phone call. I'm going to cancel that.
Nice. Let's answer. Tell them
hey,
hello,
everybody.
You're on the show.
You're on the show live. This kind of brings us into a couple of things. I guess we'll start with Bardic Inspiration. Okay. This is where we talk about things that have inspired us during the week. Specifically, Lucian inspired me with this one because you were in our Saturday morning Discord talking about spell ability or stealing abilities. Now, do you want to talk about it a little further? Just to preface where I'm going with my thing. But...
Yeah. So my character died. And so I'm in the last week, I'm in the process of creating a new character. And obviously I have a couple things in mind from what I've been watching. And it got me thinking I want to create a character, but this character has an ability to take an ability from an opponent every now and then. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be a cool D&D ability that, say, once per combat, you could take an action and you could steal an ability from something you're fighting and use it for the rest of that combat. And then maybe it goes away after that or something. I was thinking, and then so my question was, hey, does anybody know, is there a way to do this in D&D? Because it seems like a cool thing that somebody would have already thought of. And maybe I just missed it in one of the rules or magic item, or maybe there's a subclass I happened to skim over and didn't realize they had. Maybe they could do it. So that's kind of what generated this. And I'm sure this is where you're going with your Bardic Inspiration.
Yeah. So this idea of stealing somebody else's ability, not stealing, I guess borrowing, or just like I observe that and now I can do it for a limited amount of time. Like it's kind of this
ability.
Yeah. So it's I don't know, it's kind of interesting. And then it got me thinking of, I played a lot of Final Fantasy back in the day. I still love Final Fantasy. And in Final Fantasy Tactics and in Final Fantasy 5 and 6, there was a character that could do this. There is the character of the mime, or the class or job called the mime. And the mime's basic abilities are mimicking the creature that went before it. So in your party, you're like, oh, I have the white mage casting healing wind, or not, that's a bad example. I have the white mage casting cure wounds or something. And then the mimic would mimic that and literally do the exact same thing, even though they don't have the mana points. They don't have that as a subclass. They don't have anything.
Special ability.
It's just a special ability. So it got me thinking about, well, can you do that in D&D? And I found a class, a homebrew class called Mime, where somebody made a Final Fantasy Tactics mimic class, and it's kind of interesting. I don't know if I would play this specifically, but basically you have a like save DC for mimic attacks, and you have a mimic modifier, and then you emulate other people's attacks, but use your stats for that. So like if somebody does a big greatsword attack, the way I kind of envisioned it, and maybe I need to read it more thoroughly because it is just kind of this. Anyway, you like have a conjured greatsword that you attack, but you use your like proficiency and charisma for it based on the guy that did that. Or if that guy casts a fireball, you could do something similar on your turn. It had a lot of interesting things about basically looking like other people and trying to do other things like that, mimicking them, replicating effects by Why am I getting phone calls?
Your phone calls. Yeah. Well, this all came up. What I was really, I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit, is obviously I've been watching a lot of Naruto, and I wanted to make Kakashi, who has the ability to copy somebody else's fighting style or special ability. And so he ended up being called the copycat ninja to be able to do that. And I thought, oh, this is super cool. So how would I make a D&D version of Kakashi, the copycat ninja, and get to play it? And then eventually, once I figured that out, then I was going to have to talk to my Australian dungeon master into let me actually do that if it wasn't super overpowered. So that might have been the hard part. Actually, the second part of that might have been the hard part. So that, I think, is where he was coming from. He also noticed that in that same thing, there was a Beastmaster that he had in there from Final Fantasy V too. So not only was Jordan able to find the mime, but he's also able to find the Beastmaster, which also means, I bet if we look hard enough, there's lots of Final Fantasy tie-in, third-party stuff to find to bring into your game if you want to bring in some Final Fantasy stuff into your game. So,
I missed what you said because I had to walk away. Yeah, but specifically, Skull Dixon pointed me to I think it's a fan-made, but you can buy it, and I did buy it, and it looks really cool. It's essentially a Final Fantasy Tactics
version of the game,
of tabletop D&D. And it has a whole bunch of different classes that you can play. It's really cool. I forget the name of it, but if I remember, I'll try to put it in the show notes and stuff. So I don't know. Like, I like this idea of a mime character, but then I was also thinking that would be a fun idea for a villain. Mm-hmm. What if your villain, like on his initiative, replicated the last thing that was before him? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like one of those puzzle fights where they start throwing huge fireballs, and then they notice that after that he throws a huge fireball. And so then you start delaying your turn, because if they can make the cleric heal so-and-so on his turn, he'll heal so-and-so. And I like that idea a lot, of like him mimicking the person that went immediately before him. And if they can figure out, like, well, what is he doing? How is he doing this? So it could be a fun
I like
fight.
that. And you could change it up a little bit. You say round number 1, it does the last action. Round number 2, it does whatever the middle action was. And round number 3, it does the first action, and it mimics it. But then it goes back around. So if you get to round number 4, you're back down to the last action. Yeah. You get to round. So then they can start to see a pattern, and maybe they could puzzle it out. And then, like you said, change their tactics to benefit them versus what it's doing. I think that'd be kind of fun. That'd be
kind
cool,
of confusing for the dungeon master, but
sure.
But maybe if you had 3 of these mimic or these mime classes that could mimic people, and then put them in different areas of
you'd want to be prepared. Like, you'd want to have like a notepad next to you, so you're watching each person
and so you're like, okay, it would be tough, but I think that would be a really cool fight.
Yeah. So. And you'd almost want to maybe finagle their initiative roll so that you could purposely maybe give them such a big minus on initiative that it always makes them at the very bottom, or always puts them right where you need them. So it makes it easier for you to keep track of how the puzzle fight's going to go. But it would be a really fun fight, I think.
Yeah. So that is my bardic inspiration. Nice. Specifically, the Beastmaster thing that I put in our show notes was, I was writing that, and I'm like, I forgot that Beastmaster's, like, once the beast was in lower hit points, you would try to capture it in this like magical gourd, and then later on you could release the monster, and different monsters did different attacks, but it was a single attack that the monster would do that you would release. And then I was like, man, that should be a magic item in D&D. Like, how cool would that be? And then I realized there are like 4 magic items like that. Like this one traps demons, and this one, I think it's called the Iron Flask, is the one I'm specifically thinking of, where you can trap something and then summon it, and it'll listen to you for an hour or something. So anyway, but Lucian, cool. what bardic inspiration did you have? As I almost
mine came from every now and then I like to choose an actor that I really like to go watch, and then I'll go watch a bunch of movies that they've been in. And of course, this one I was thinking about Bill Murray movies, and What About Bob, and we looked at Groundhog Day, and then we were watching Zombieland, and Bill Murray was in all of these ones. And so I was just thinking about that. And then it kind of dawned on me as a challenge to you dungeon masters out there who think you've got it all down, who think you're pretty pro dungeon master level. Could you run a Groundhog Day adventure for your party and make it kind of fun? Like, how would you, what things would you do and what storyline would you set up so that your party wakes up somewhere, they go through the whole day not realizing something's about to happen, maybe they die, but then you start them back up, they wake up again and they start the whole day, and then they will realize quickly, because they've all watched the same movies, that they're having a Groundhog Day incident. And what are they going to do to get out of the loop? Because there's all kinds of movies like this and there's all kinds of spin-offs, but Groundhog Day is the one that always sits in my head. And I just thought, as a dungeon master, because you're running the same thing over, but you've got to be improv enough to handle all the different things they're going to try, because they're going to try a million different things now that they know every time I die, I start over until I figure out what's supposed to happen until I start. So they're going to keep doing different things. So you have to be prepared for the different things they're going to do. You can't just be lazy like most of us and prepare the one thing you think they're going to do and not really worry about the rest, because they're going to try all kinds of crazy, wacky stuff. So I thought, as a challenge to you dungeon masters out there, and I may do this myself at one point, if you really want to challenge yourself, maybe try to create a Groundhog Day adventure that lasts maybe a session or two until they figure it out. And what is the mechanic that finally gets them out of the loop? You got to figure out what that is. What is the day they're running through, the location and what's going on? And I think you have to have a really good understanding of all the NPCs that they're going to run into and all the motivations and all the ways that something might change what they do that day based on the actions of the players. But I think it could be really fun, and it'd be something they would talk about after it was all done and over with. I think would be super fun.
Yeah. The Adventure Zone, the McElroy brothers of My Brother and Me, they do a D&D podcast called The Adventure Zone, and he did that. He did a Groundhog's Day. But no, I would encourage you to do it because it was really cool. And if you want a good idea of how to run it, like, I would listen to those episodes because, man, it's like it was super good. And every time they died, they would come back and be like, oh, here we are again. And so a couple of times the joke would happen where they would just say the wrong thing and then like quickly go, like, I don't know, drink poison or jump off something and then reset and come back and do it again.
Right, because they'd already messed it up. Yeah. That's fun.
But it was clever, and that was the whole mystery, was why is this town in a time loop? And they had to like figure out what exactly happened and why it's being destroyed and things like that. So
there's something about giving your players something they recognize like that's pulp culture reference that they'll just grab onto too. Because once they realize they're in the groundhog loop, they're just you're gonna see the smiles come out, you're gonna see all the craziness come out, you're gonna see a really fun session develop, because they're gonna dive right into something like that. None of them are gonna be like, oh, this is dumb. They're gonna be like, oh my god, we're in it, how are we gonna beat this? What they're gonna think of all the movies they've seen that helped them try to beat it. And I think they could really draw them in. So I thought it would be kind of cool to try. So that was my
definitely do that, I think.
Yeah, I'm gonna go watch that one because I want to see it. A lot of comedy and a lot of humor. I would keep it light. I would keep it funny. That's what I would lean more towards, to really go after it and let them really just have fun. And like you said, if they want to just kill themselves so they could restart because they feel like they've messed up, let them go do it. Let it be funny stuff and let it be like, I drowned myself in the bathtub with a rubber ducky or something. And okay, let's start over and do this thing now. Let's keep moving. Okay, we're going to try this next time. No, I want to learn piano skills. So whatever it might be. So I think it'd be fun. But that was our Bardic Inspiration. So all you dungeon masters out there, definitely let us know what your Bardic Inspiration was over the last 2 weeks. Anything that you've been watching, reading, or just affected you and thought, hey, maybe a campaign could be made about this, an adventure, or maybe a class, or how would I bring this into my D&D game, or whatever it might be. So I did notice you have a discussion topic there.
Yeah, it was something.
Were you thinking about bypassing it? Or do you want to go with it?
No, let's talk about our games. I think that's good.
Yeah, let's talk about our games. All right.
And I just want to say, the discussion in YouTube was getting a little More than I wanted to handle, and we don't have moderators and stuff. So for a limited amount of time, I just ended the chat. So I'm sorry, everybody,
right.
but continue to watch the show. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you understand my reasonings for that. Because I don't want to. Because
we don't have moderators.
I don't have moderators, and I don't want to cause a lot of backlash of stuff. So just so you know. But Lucian, what games have you been playing? What's going on? Besides, we heard your character died. So
I'm playing the character death game at the moment. So it's not necessarily spoilers, I guess, but I won't dive too deep into it. But my Gloomstalker died to the breath of a dragon, as every adventurer in a Dungeons and Dragons game should hope to achieve, is that a dragon breathes fire on you, and that is the end of your character, because that is quintessential Dungeons and Dragons. Mm-hmm. So that is what happened. Died to a breath weapon. It was super fun. I missed my first 2 death saves. I made the next 2, and I missed the third one. So it was like a 4, a 3, a couple of higher numbers, and then a 4, and I was out. And I was like, oh no. So I died. The rest of the party, one person went unconscious but stabilized. The others ran. So it wasn't a TPK, but my character went down. And we did have this discussion before about, I kind of let them know that if my characters go down, don't go through the whole process of resurrecting them, because I like the idea of making new characters. I like the idea that if that's what happens, that's what happens. Let it roll. But I'm also okay if one of our players says, "No, I really love this guy and I want to bring him back." Okay, we'll go to a somewhere to find a resurrection way to resurrect you and get you back. We'll go to hell if we have to bring your soul back, or whatever, if that's what they want.
Which can be a whole fun adventure.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, is like some people want that adventure, but you specifically, you're like, I'm okay.
I'm ready for it. And it was a cool character. I really like Shady Tooth a lot. But I'm always have these ideas of characters. So I thought, no, I'm just going to roll with it. We'll bring another one in. So I am making a new character for that. I'm leaning at the moment towards a pretty badass kind of archer build, and I've been jumping back and forth between like an arcane archer or maybe a samurai using some of the archer stuff, or maybe a battle master and working the battle master stuff into the ranged weapon instead of how most people play it, into the melee weapon version of it. So that's one route. But then I started thinking, we're about to play Dungeon of the Mad Mage, which is the only adventure really that guarantees you're going to get up to probably level 20. I have never, ever, ever played a level 20 character, and I have definitely never had a character go from a very low level, say 4 or 5 or wherever, I'll be at 5 for this one, and make it to 20. So it started making me think, well, if the next character I'm going to build and I want to get them to 20, what is the character that I want to be my first level 20 character?
Yeah.
Because that's like a milestone in your character creation stuff, right? You have when you made your first character, you had who's your favorite character, you've had who's your character that's done all these cool things. Well, who's your character that ever made it to 20, and what do I want that story to be? So that kind of made me start thinking, well, I've always wanted to do a warlock, a really nice high-level warlock. I've been really interested in sorcerer. Do I want to do a really high-level sorcerer at some point? So I'm kind of flipping back and forth. I got till Tuesday to decide before the game again, and then we'll
what are some, I mean, you said sorcerer and warlock, but like specifically, what are some of your options? Like, because you have like an idea, I assume, or no?
I love warlocks to death, and I'm thinking I want to see what a level 20 warlock looks like. I've never,
but like a warlock of the fiend, a great old one,
old one for me. I love great old
blade lock, or
I'm thinking either Pact of the Chain or Pact of the Tome, because I like both of those, but I like the idea of the Quasit or some of the things you can do. I love all the Eldritch.
Gazer. I think there's a Gazer familiar if you do Pact of the Chain. Yeah.
Or if I go sorcerer, I'm thinking of a really strong elementalist sorcerer, wild magic maybe, just to see how crazy that is in a game. And I've never seen anybody play the wild magic version of that, where the dungeon master makes you roll after you've cast a spell to see what happens on the wild magic table.
It can be fun. We had a wild magic in my Hot Springs Island game, but and maybe it'll be different for you. It's always different for other things, but like we noticed that, or I guess from my perspective, it got kind of annoying to be like, oh yeah, we have to see if wild magic goes off. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, but at certain interesting times, it does say that the dungeon master could just make a wild magic effect happen. And so I did like that mechanic, and I wish that was actually the mechanic. So rather than like, oh, I cast a spell, I have to roll again to see if wild magic happens. Oh, I cast a spell, but I was under duress or I lost concentration on a spell. And that's when the dungeon master is like, you know what, roll wild magic. I'm curious what's going to happen.
Yeah, I could make it happen, not just roll to see if it happens. Yeah. I like that too. And I probably would let the DM do that, because when you have good dungeon masters and they know kind of what your character is about, they can help facilitate making that character be able to do that kind of thing. So I think that's kind of cool. But that was really the only game I'm playing. So I've got we're just about done with Waterdeep Dragon Heist. It's been fun.
Yeah.
It's had ups and downs. We also have Acquisitions Inc. is slammed into that. We just got to a level 2 franchise, so that's part of the thing that's going on. It's really fun to think about when our characters have died, that HQ sends another person, because we're down a person now, and it's fun to have that whole HR has sent somebody else over for this thing, and to play that thing up. This is definitely a band of rapscallions. This is a band of thieves and cutthroats. So it is a different game to play. It's a little bit less we're the heroes, and a little bit more we're kind of bad guys fighting other bad guys.
Yeah. Well, so, you're in it for yourselves rather
the
than
lesser
for
evil
protecting and saving people. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's been interesting, but I think it'll be fun, and I can't wait to do a big slog dungeon dive. I know not everybody loves that style of game, but I love the idea of 18 levels of Underdeep or Underdark, and just slogging through tunnels and slogging through caverns and slogging through craziness. And I can't wait to see how that all turns out. So I'm excited to play that. That's gonna be super fun.
Whoop. No, it's not. It's not the Underdark. It's Undermountain.
Undermountain.
I think that's what it is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's the Dungeon of the Mad Mage,
which is the Dungeon of the Mad Mage is Undermountain, the ruins of Undermountain. Yeah. So that's where you were getting Underdark, and I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah. But no, it's really exciting. That sounds fun. I also like making new characters. It's always sad when one dies, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. I've got like 15 other ones that I want to play. Yeah. Boy, lately I've been trying to come up with an idea of making like a really strong melee bard. And I now have this Mage Slayer build that I created where he has like the mage. There's like a mage killer feat.
Everybody picks on the mages. That's the problem. Everybody makes a Mage Slayer. Nobody makes the Barbarian Slayer.
Yeah, you're right. Nobody does. I think that's because that's Hold Person and Lightning, but I could be wrong. But no, it's been anyway. So now I really want to play this bard that I've been cooking up. But sorry, I'll let you keep going. You had some MMOs.
Well, the only other thing I had there, it was I just wanted to play some MMOs because I hadn't been playing enough tabletop. So I thought, well, I'll just jump into MMOs, which is the closest you're going to get to a digital version of a role-playing game. And so I kicked up Final Fantasy 14 online because I'd heard lots of good things about it, and Phantasy Star Online 2. So 2 MMOs that are based more of a Japanese MMOs, more of what they would call an Eastern version of MMOs than a Western MMO. And I've been having fun. I'm taking it slow. I'm not trying to rush through things. The 2 things that's nice about both of these MMOs are you can switch classes very easily. So you can start out as one thing and you can like, okay, I kind of got the idea of what's going on here, but now let me try this other thing and see what it's like. And they just have a really different version set of classes and things you can play. Western style MMOs are really based on a lot of Dungeons and Dragons style classes. So you'll see a lot of stuff you're familiar with if you're playing Dungeons and Dragons. Whereas Eastern style Final Fantasies and in this Phantasy Star Online, they have some really different stuff that they come up with and some really different ideas of classes and jobs that you can be a part of. So it's really cool. I'm having a good time playing those out. And I think I'm just going to constantly dip into them a little bit here and there as I'm playing right now I'm playing a gladiator, which is going to turn into a paladin in Final Fantasy, but I'm also want to try the mages because like you just said, there's a white mage and a black mage, a red mage and a blue mage. Those are all Final Fantasy kind of cool things. But then they had ninjas and samurais, and they have all kinds of just
summoners,
crazy classes. Summoners,
I played a summoner for a long time, and in Final Fantasy 14 I played a summoner, so it was fun.
So very cool. And so I'm playing those, so I'll probably keep that added to my little section of what kind of game stuff I'm playing, and I'll bring that to you guys as I play it. I may even stream some stuff here or there if you guys want to jump in and play, because it's always more fun to play with others when you're playing MMOs. So. But what did Jordan do gaming wise? Now we heard he's moving, so he's playing the moving RPG.
Yeah, so well, we didn't have a show last week, but and I didn't have Rod of Seven Parts this last Wednesday. But the Wednesday before, my party was in a caravanserai, which is like a underground kind of hotel area or abode, I guess I should say. And this was specifically a resort that they were like going to, but they found out pretty quick that it wasn't your typical resort. And there was a couple of Afridi brothers that were trying to capture people and then take them to the city of Brass, and then they would be sold into slavery and things like that. They ended up beating like all of the monsters, and there was a big like, hey, if you turn left, you could go to the city of Brass, and they all collectively were like, yeah, we don't want that. And they went like, they didn't even look back. And there was a part of me that was like, oh, that would have been really cool. So now I have all of this city of Brass gameplay that I will put in the back of my mind, and I will use it later at some point. But boy, that would have been interesting, because I haven't had a game do that large of a plane jump. I guess my friends are in the Shadowfell right now, but that game's on hiatus until the virus is a little more cleared up and until we move. I was in this Silent Hill, dark, weird, and wild game is the thing we were using. And I couldn't make that because of house stuff. I was packing. And then I found out that night that they had a TPK. So that game is now over. And they're all really excited.
Silent Hill, so I would imagine everybody dies.
Yeah, they died. Yeah. And so now they're going to play a Fantasy Flight Star Wars RPG game that they're very excited for. I will not be joining because of house, and I just have a lot of stuff going on. But if they continue on, I might join. It's kind of sounds like a lot of them want to be like Jedi or Sith or have force powers, and I'm like, I want to be a R2D2 astrometric droid, like, and you can in that game. And I was like, on cool. It. That sounds awesome. So maybe I'll join that at some point. So really, the only game that's actively happening right now is my Wildmount game, which we're normally play on Saturdays, but we're not tonight because it's the 4th of July. Again, my Conjuration Wizard, Josh A., he's really fun, super greedy. He's got a piggy bank familiar that runs around and eats gold in stores, and then I can, put him in an extra dimensional space to keep my money safe. It's fun. We're in Zadesh. So if you're a Critical Role fan, we're playing Wildmount. We're now in Zadesh, which is a huge city. And I'm excited for this because our DM has decided that like we're going to spend quite a bit of time in Zadesh hunting for clues and trying to figure out our next move. And we're going to get a series of downtime weeks. So I was looking at all of the downtime rules from Explorer's Guide to, or Xanathar's Guide to Everything. And using those, I'm like, well, I kind of think I want to, excuse me, I want to sell this magic item if I can. There's rules to do that. I want to research some spells. There's rules to do that. So we're going to have some downtime, and I like that idea. It's kind of fun. I was wondering how you were handling downtime, and do you do it at the table where you're like, okay, guys, you had a week. What do you want to do? Or do you do it through chat? Like, which kind of seems the more logical way to do it. Like Discord. If we have a week of downtime, we shouldn't meet to discuss what we want to do. We should just be like, hey, I want to do this. And then, do some trustworthy roles and go with that. So I don't know.
Yeah, we do it through Discord to give everybody a chance to write up some cool RP scenes that they can have total control of once we kind of have meshed out what has happened. Like they might say, hey, I want to try to find this new information. We make some rolls and we decide, well, you got some of the information, but you didn't quite get all of it. And how do you think, and let's brainstorm some ways that you would have got it. And then they go back and they write in our RP channel a little short story of what happened while they were on their own downtime. And it gives them a creative outlet to really show their character off. It gives them a chance to say, like one of ours guys doing a downtime, he wants to create a mine. So he's a dwarf. He's creating a mine. So he's going through and hiring things and figure out logistics and how he's going to do that whole thing. So his downtime is always wrapped around that thing. And I think that's fun, but I don't want the sessions because we only meet for such a short amount of time.
Yeah.
And I want it to be more adventure-y and action filled Whereas we can do all the stuff that's not action filled, I think, throughout the week in Discords and just have, fun chats and stuff.
Yeah, and that's what I was wondering. I actually did the opposite. When I was running Ghosts of Saltmarsh, we would all get together, and then people would be like, I'm like, okay, what did you guys want to do for downtime? And we would roll some downtime quick, maybe a little bit of scenes, and then that would transition into, okay, now you have this, now you go on the adventure. And it never took a long time, but now that I'm thinking about it, and now that I'm the one on the receiving end of downtime, I'm like, I've got all of these ideas. Wouldn't that be I don't want to say a better way, but like it feels more efficient in a way. And I like that idea of like, oh, I could show up to the table in 2 weeks and be like, oh, you had 10 days of downtime. Here's what I wanted to do. Here's what you were able to accomplish. Boom. I've got my information I wanted, and I've got this, and I get the fun of being able to relay that to the group, because that's a one-on-one conversation I had with my dungeon master. So I don't know. Downtime's kind of interesting. I like it. I really, I've been studying my Witch Plus Craft book, which is where I got my piggy bank familiar, and they have crafting rules and stuff like that in that book. And that book's actually nominated for an ENnie. So if you're interested in the ENnie Independent RPG Nomination Awards, you should go check it out. And I keep gesturing back to my empty bookcase because that's where my Witch Plus Craft book would be. But really good supplement. And how there's a lot of different ways for crafting magical items and coming up with interesting stuff. And downtime is a fun way of doing all those. So I don't know. I'm liking downtime more and more to flesh out a campaign setting, So yeah. Other than that's it. I don't think I'm going to be playing games for 2 weeks. So this whole week is dedicated to moving. So we'll see about that happening. Lucian's muted, so I'm assuming there's some kind of an alarm going off, which is really exciting. Is there anything else we need to talk about before we leave? No? All right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you again for sharing this podcast with your friends and all that other stuff. We're really excited to have you here. Join us next week for another wonderful episode of the Saturday Morning D&D Show. And until then, have a great 4th of July. If you are in the Americas, stay safe. And if you're not, please also stay safe if you're not in the Americas, because we care about all of you. We will see you next week. Goodbye, everybody. Take care.